Welcome back to Reality 101, everyone. My name is Dr. Molly.
And I'm Dr. Rule.
And if you're listening to our summer school, What Are You Watching special segment for all of you who are out of school and hopefully have some summer vacation. You've probably been watching a lot of TV. We know we have, because that's all we do. So a lot to talk about. How are you doing, Dr. Rule?
I'm doing really well. I'm enjoying this beautiful summer. School's out. And you know that means we have more time to consume pop culture. So this is a special bonus episode where we're going to just catch up on what we've been watching, what we think about it. And as always, we want to hear what you've been watching too. What do you want us to cover? Get at us on social media.
Yeah, and you can also participate with Reality 101 and get to know us a little bit better by tuning into our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/RLTY, and we have special tiers on there for everyone who wants to get involved with the Reality 101 classroom. And you can also access past episodes of show recaps that we've done in our spring 2023 semester. And they can also find us you can also find us on social media. Where, Dr. Roll?
Of course you can. We are on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Our handle is at RLTY101. You can also find us on YouTube.
Yeah, we're on YouTube, somewhere on YouTube. I'm just kidding. It's RLTY101, the same as everything. And go ahead, Dr. Roll. I cut you off.
I was just saying, of course, we have consistency across our handles.
Of course we do, because we're G's, but also I wanted to mention that at the time of recording, there's been like 9 new social media platforms invented. So we'll have to discuss if we're getting on any of these or what we're going to do. I'm personally on Spill. I don't know how to use it the same way I don't know how to use anything. So we'll see about that, Dr. Rule. I don't know. Have you been on any new social medias?
I'm on them all. Work hard to keep up, but it's a challenge. It's a changing landscape.
It really is. It really is. So speaking of changing landscapes, I know that I don't watch the same things that I watch in the summer as I do in the spring or in the fall, not just because different shows are circulating on different channels, but also because sometimes I save things for the summer, or sometimes there's shows I like to watch straight through. So I want to hear from you, Dr. Rule. What have you been watching recently, and what is something that maybe you saved for the summer, or something that you're looking forward to watching this summer?
Absolutely. So I've been still on the reality TV train. I've been watching Love in Paradise, which has been wonderful. I'm just channeling that, hot, summery, beachy energy with Love in Paradise. So it's been great. I've been keeping up with some of these crazy couples and just all of their shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
I also have been recommending just the 90 Day Fiancé franchise to so many people to give a watch so that we have more people to talk about it with. But that's really been my main reality TV binge.
Okay. So as per usual, we're watching the same ones. I'm also watching Love in Paradise. I'm really into the Scott and Lydia / what is his? Nicole. Yeah. But is that the Colombian?
That's Lydia's daughter.
Yeah, but who's his new Colombian girlfriend that was like option number 2?
Oh, I don't know what her name is.
Yeah. I'm watching that whole drama as Scott. Ugh. And then I'm also watching Before the 90 Days, which has been, I think, really fascinating, as per usual. It's such a fascinating franchise. It's really where the creepers come out. I don't know. Have you been watching it, Dr. Rule?
I have been. Of course, I have been. It's been great. It's been a really good season. I guess we need to get together, Dr. Molly, and decide if we're going to cover it or not, or maybe we'll cover it after it airs. Let us know. Do you want us to cover it? Write us, tell us, let us know.
Yeah. And I mean, We will have to talk about that because just, I think we can break the fourth wall for our listeners. We started covering Love in Paradise, and then our semesters got away from us. And so that's also something we want to hear, right? Is if we should continue to cover the rest of that season. There's been a lot that's happened, but it's also not been like the most amazing season. I feel like there's also going to be another 90 Day UK coming up, but I don't think you've watched that franchise at all. No, that's okay.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm totally not opposed to it. I just have not watched it so far.
I think it would be interesting for us to cover because, the UK are like the OG colonizers, and the way that xenophobia operates in the UK is so different than here.
I agree.
And it's also really fun to watch the ways that American potential partners are discriminated against based on their Americanness by people in the UK. So I heavily enjoy it.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then, there's like another season, I think, of just regular 90 Day Fiance coming out at the end of July, I believe. But for me, I do have to say, I was telling Dr. Rule, I've been watching a lot of Hoarders, and I know that there's people on these shows dealing with different layers of psychosis and separation from family and home and place. But I think it's one of the funniest shows on television, right? Because I think it's actually a way that we can laugh at the absurdity of people trying to survive capitalism. The new season of Hoarders, season 12, is really mainly people. I don't know if they're planning this thread, but it's people who are like planning for the end of the world. So it's like, oh, climate change is happening. It's all Bitcoin. We don't have use for the American dollar anymore. So I'm making use in like keeping all these tin cans because it's going to be our new currency. Or people who are like, no one's come to visit me in 12 years and all my friends are online. And so I've made friends with all of these objects. Like, I just think there's a lot of material in Hoarders. So
interesting. You also just totally jogged my memory. I know what I've been watching. I've been watching Catfish. I still watch that show. Do you watch that?
No, but I haven't watched the new season, but tell me more. What's been good about it?
I love it. I just finished the most recent season. It was excellent. Every season they like ratchet it up a little bit, right? Yeah. The next level of insanity. And I have to say something, I think I've seen every Catfish episode. That's just one of those shows that's really easy to watch, right? It's like half an hour. You don't have to keep up with the people. I love Cammie. I think she's such a great co-host, and Neve is like the OG. So this season we saw their 200th episode. So it's been around for a long time, people know. But what happened on this season, and it was the last episode that I watched, is that they had, of course, some people meet, and they met in a virtual reality world, right? So this is something I know little to nothing about. So I know that I'm not even going to use the correct terminology here, but I think there's so much to analyze there, right? Because the typical Catfish premise has been that somebody, meets on social media. And the introduction of these new virtual spaces, right? Like these virtual hangout spaces was just fascinating to me. So, they were avatars, they were creating avatars that looked kind of like how they looked in real life, but sort of avatar version, which you have a lot of creative control over. And then the places where they were choosing to hang out. So like these people met in a virtual pool party, and they also hang out in a virtual strip club, which is a little bit, like there's so much going on there, right? I don't know if this is just the age of COVID, where people hang out here, or if this is just technology. I personally have never dabbled in any of that technology, but it was just like a new intersection, right, of the typical Catfish storyline with emerging technologies. and especially the virtual component, it was fascinating to me.
And I'm just like curious, where is the gotcha? Where's the catfish, right? Is it, so it can't be that were they presenting a different physical presentation virtually, or what was it?
A little bit, right? There was some creative control that was exercised, but nothing extreme. It just ended up being that the person was actually not a catfish. It was one of those real ones. So the person was who she said she was, but she was just uncomfortable meeting in person. And yeah, so she was evasive, and didn't want to FaceTime in real life, and she just wanted to live her avatar life.
It's really, really interesting. I'm not pretending to be someone else. I just don't want to meet you.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was actually not a catfish at all. I would think that in a virtual world, catfishing would be very easy. I don't know. Maybe because they thought it would be so obvious, right? They chose to get an episode where it was really, close enough to what that person really looked like in real life.
So interesting. And so, okay, with catfishing, I have to ask you then, what do you think about this storyline that's been happening on Before the 90 Days with Tyree and his quote unquote girlfriend, Carmela? And right, so if you're not watching Before the 90 Days, Tyree, who's from Cali.
If you're not watching, buckle up.
Buckle up. It's like the first catfish 90 Day Fiance crossover. I'm like, where is he? Where is he popping out? I think we definitely need some sort of psychotherapist on set, because the hula hoops this man is jumping to make excuses and make narrative out of a non-human is fascinating. So I'll just back up. So Tyree's from California. He's been talking with a woman named Carmela from Barbados for about 4 years. After year 2 or 3, he went to Barbados to meet her and see her. She never showed up at the hotel. Shocker.
Okay. She didn't show up.
Shocker. So then he goes back to Barbados. He's also dealing with the grief from his father's murder several years ago and his mother's untimely stroke. He's her primary caretaker. Carmela is basically all that he has. And then production digs up that Carmela is not a person, that's an AI, or she's a person, but the photos, we're still trying to work it out. The photos are an actual person. But I was listening to a podcast where they're breaking down how like the movement in her photos are actually an AI thing. So there's probably multiple layers. So she probably is maybe a sex worker or someone online who's working, but then someone else has extracted her photos and made videos out of like movement videos using AI.
See, okay. Technology, catfishing, globalization, reality TV. There's just so much here, right? Yeah, it's very sad, what's happening to him, because he's really struggling to accept the reality of it. That's really sad. There was also, insert 60 days in as a possible theory, where he's telling his sister that he thinks maybe one of the things that's happened, because he can't grasp the fact that she's not real. He thinks maybe one of the things that has happened is that she was incarcerated the whole time they were talking. And then now she is not incarcerated, and her real life boyfriend found out about him and made her cut off the relationship. The mental gymnastics of it, yeah, are actually pretty devastating. But it's just so deeply interesting. And then what you were saying about sort of AI and the manipulation of images, to bring it back to catfish, in the same season where you have these avatars interacting, you also then have basically the opposite, and a very low-tech catfish, where there's a woman of an older generation. She doesn't know how to do like a reverse image search or anything. She's never even Googled this guy, right? So she's pretty low-tech. But what's sad is that it was, I think, like a Nigerian scammer pretending to be, you know, a musician. And he video called her twice, once with the show and once before the catfish people intervened. And he got on the video chat and literally just showed, instead of holding the camera to his face, he held the camera to his computer screen and showed a video of the guy he was pretending to be. And the catfish people saw it and they were like, bro, that's a video of your computer screen. It's all pixelated. But this woman who was not that familiar with technology thought that that was really him.
Yeah. Yeah. And none the wiser, but it could happen to anybody. And I would also say an element of deception, you know, virtually is just happening to us all every day. I mean, there's no way that I have 0 followers on Instagram. That's not true. You know, I don't know, 700 odd, a very low number of followers on Instagram. Like, some of those have to be bots. They absolutely have to be bots. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just math, right? And I think that we're interacting with fake people all of the time. I don't know. I think that reality, again, you know, reality TV is so fascinating because while it's extremely constructed and these storylines are very manufactured, and we know that production plays a heavy hand in all of it, it still is giving us a glimpse into like the turning points in like our new 20th or 21st century. So, you know, I know we're 23 years in now, but it's like the world is rapidly changing all of the time, just because like every year there's a new crisis. And I think that, you know, this year, or a buzzword already, is just like AI this, AI that, AI everything. As professors, I don't know about you, Dr. Rule, but like even this last semester, I had students using AI to write papers. And so it very much affects what I do, and it's affecting people's love lives too. It's so glad I'm off the dating apps.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. Even going back to what you were saying about the bots, I literally just saw that on Twitter the other day. A friend of mine suddenly, out of nowhere, gained 30,000 followers. And she is convinced that they're all bots. She got put on some, you know, list. She doesn't know what happened, but suddenly she had this 30,000 increase. And there was just no way that that was a natural follower growth, right? So yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's interesting to think about the ways in which reality TV is holding up a mirror to the challenges of society. And again, just that dichotomy of having in 2 episodes in the same season this very sort of low tech experience coupled with this very sort of high tech experience. Yeah, there's just a lot to say there.
There's a lot to say. And then, as per usual, for Tyree, as many people on the show, I think, are dealing with unresolved grief, but then also I think questioning maybe his sexuality. You know, well, and I think this happens on Catfish. Like, well, what happens when the person that you're quote unquote in love with ends up not being someone embodied who you're usually attracted to?
Right. Right.
And you know, he refers to Carmel, or if you've noticed, he keeps referring to her as they. Right. He started calling her Carmela and she, and then when he found or heard like the male's voice or the men's voice, lower voice, he started calling them they. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that also, so not social media, but just like our digital world is also, well, like, what do we do with desire and sexuality when people are literally disembodied or virtually embodied?
Right.
Yeah. So
Right. That's, yeah. We haven't, I guess we're kind of talking about it now, but yeah, I mean, people are also falling in love with AIs.
Yeah.
This is happening all around us, and I'm gonna shift gears here real quick to go to basically the opposite of technology, how we tend to think about it, but recognizing that this is still actually very technological. Dr. Molly, I understand that you've been watching Alone.
I've been watching Alone. I've been watching Naked and Afraid, the new season, very obsessed with all of these things. I was telling Dr. Rule that I recently met someone who's going to be on alone, and just, understanding what would possess someone to do that. Because, well, there's just like so many things about Alone. Well, Naked and Afraid, but Naked and Afraid is too produced for my taste buds. I've just been on Naked and Afraid Reddit too much, and I've been in too many Ask Me Anythings to understand. Like, now I know that it's just like so unrealistic. Like, people are getting IVs every day. Honey, give me pure dehydration. Like, I'm not. You're getting multivitamins? Like, excuse me.
Food poisoning, and somebody eats a berry and poisons themselves on Alone. Yeah.
Or like I forget what episode that was, but they were like, I need, a medic. And they're like, it's going to be a minimum of 12 hours. Do you think you can survive? Just a clear question.
Yeah.
You're still going to be alive when we get there. It's interesting because I think about like the fetishization of like the natural world. People just, I just need to get back to, as you study, right? Like these traditions of surviving on land that people have done for thousands of years, whilst like completely annihilating the human aspect of that, right? In the lives of those people that created those crafts and those survival skills, but then also an obsession with this idea of like uninhabitable land. It's like, it was very much habited by lots of people successfully.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And, so many things I want to say about this, right? The first is, when I was saying about technology, right? We think about something like Alone or Naked and Afraid or Survivor. The whole premise of that show is, like you said, like an escape from the quote unquote progress, right? That mainstream society is engaged in. But that word, even something like progress, right, is so loaded with the history of colonization and even the word technology. So one of the things that I do, one of my many hats as an academic that we all have, is I sit on a leadership board for the MIT Solve Indigenous Communities Fellowship, and we give funding to solvers, is what they're called, right? Who are creating solutions to problems in their communities. And it's all about Indigenous knowledge. But the thing that's so cool about that is that we, even as a group, have really been thinking about what is technology, right? And technology is not just AI and computers and rockets, right? Technology is also things like traditional knowledge, right? How do you collect food? How do you fish or hunt? How do you irrigate, a territory, right? All of these things are also technologies. How do you build shelters or vehicles, canoes? These are all technologies. So it's interesting, like you said, that it's set up as being this backward movement, right? When somebody goes on a show like these survivalist shows, but they're not technological. It's just a different type of technology.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because my field of study has also an obsession with this idea of technology and specifically, a very famous quote from a Black feminist, Toni Cade Bambara. She writes that, not all movement is progress. And, I think we're seeing that in real time with what, is happening with AI and all of these things. It's like, great, you can build it, but like, do we really need that? Is that bringing people closer together? Is it helping people irrigate, right, land that has already or has previously been deemed irrigationable? I don't know what the word is. Unirrigationable. Making up words, hashtag Black feminism. But no, and I think it's also, a lot of Black feminists talk about like with theology, like talking about how theology is a technology of colonialism, and how these different technologies, they're simply instruments, right? That by definition, technology is a machine or instrument that is made, that's discovered or made or produced to make things easier, right? Or better. But when you have shifting definitions of what easier or better are for different groups of people or for different geographies, those things look very different. And so when I see people on Alone, they're not all, white embodied men. I recently was watching an episode with a man from Chile, and he was in the Arctic, and he was really right to point out that he's like, I have a serious disadvantage, and it's not because I'm used to warm weather. He's like, my body literally is not used to eating foods that are like preserved meats. It's not what my people eat. And so he was talking about how he burns through food a lot faster, he thinks, than like his other competitors, because of it's just not his natural diet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And then I was saying that there's this other show too, survivalist show that I never remember the name of. Outlast. So also like a clear reference to Survivor, right? Which I think I described it as depraved.
Yeah, you really did. You're like Satan. That's what you want, satanic.
It was like the ills of human groups trying to survive. It was like Alone meets Survivor meets like Game of Thrones. So Outlast, gonna add that to the list for anybody that's interested. And I also just started this new season of Survivor. I haven't gotten very far, but I'm really looking forward to it. Survivor's such like a classic.
Well, it's deemed, as they say, it was the original reality show. Like,
right.
I think that, at its, I don't know, we could talk about this, and I know, in the future we'll be writing about this, right? But I think where reality TV really succeeds is, we always say it holds a mirror up to, society and all these things, but specifically how people relate to one another in late stage capitalism. Like Survivor is just a very reduced idea of what you're seeing at the grocery store. It's very reduced, or like it's something that's very theatrical about. It's like, oh, like, what do you do with global warming? Like, what do you do with people who are literally displaced from their homes in Los Angeles to some foreign island and are not used to the resources there? Like, that's what's happening with displaced peoples today because of climate change.
Right.
It's
right.
very,
that's such a good point.
Yeah, it's very dystopic, while it's also just trying to be entertaining. But, we also talk about these shows like Real Housewives, or in a moment, I'm going to rant about Vanderpump Rules, which I've been watching, right? Which is like, what is the problem? I think, we want to frame, again, to bad about cheating, but I think it's like, our couple or two people in a relationship, is that sustainable in today's society? Like, I don't know. There's limitations to a couple. So I think that's what's on Vanderpump Rules. And then we know the Real Housewives are just what happens to feminine embodied people, right? When all the hunters and the gatherers leave the home, and then, right, we have this like very anthropological scene where it's like all the women are around and fighting for resources, aka attention.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that I'm also a Real Housewives fanatic. So of course I've been watching New Jersey, Atlanta. Love it. But please take us to Vanderpump Rules.
Okay.
I have to admit, I have not watched. I mean, nobody take away my reality TV card, but it is on my summer list. And that's why the summer is wonderful, is because the pressure valve releases a little bit. And so I'm going to watch it. Okay,
well, first, I just want to do a quick shout out to our mutual colleague, Christina Wood at American University, who is a Vanderpump Rules scholar. Okay, if there was an Ivy League for VPR, the highest degree. Okay,
also have you on the show if you're
also an amazing scholar of refugee studies, but her knowledge of VPR is amazing. So, okay. I just want to start off by saying I did live in LA for some time, so I do have some nostalgia for the show. That's why I just kind of wanted to see it, and some of the places they go to, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. I have not seen all of Vanderpump Rules. I only managed to stomach season 10. I wanted to watch what led up to the big scandal, right? And so in the middle, we have a tripartite of Tom Sandoval, aka the worm with a mustache, who, as he's called in the tell-all by James Kennedy, who we find out has been having what he admits to a month-long affair with another ancillary cast member. But you know, I think we can basically infer it's probably been going on for at least a year or years. And with while he's in a 9-year relationship with another prominent cast member named Ariana Madix. And boy, where do I start? It's just the main thing I want to talk about without even getting into the whole, like, you know, what happened there is just the way that the show jumped in viewership was something like 400% or something like that. I tuned into just the reunion. I had never seen it. I'd never heard of the show, and I watched the reunion and it actually hooked me. Like I think that's a phenomenon. Like I wouldn't be able to just tune into a Real Housewives reunion.
And I mean, I can attest to this, right? Vanderpump Rules has been around for a long time. I think I've watched a couple of handful of episodes like in the background. It's not my cup of tea, was never into it. And yet everybody is talking about it. Even though I haven't watched it, I know what happened because it's a pop culture phenomenon.
It really is. It really is. And it's almost like, well, what happens when an audience completely trusts certain people on these reality shows, or we think we know them? And it wasn't a betrayal just to his partner. It was a betrayal to the audience. It was fascinating. And, you know, the person that he cheated on, she has secured like $2 million, at least in endorsements since this breakup. She's been able to launch a new business or like her sandwich shop or something like that. But for me, like just as someone who is interested in media, I wouldn't say I'm like a media scholar. So the show has denied that they retroactively edited this narrative arc. They time and time again, producers like EPs, Lisa Vanderpump has been interviewed. They said we have not edited it, but there is no way that that is true. I just think the narrative is just too clean. It's too clean. There's no way that's true. And so it just also begs the question of a double betrayal, which is that now that the audience was not just betrayed, but we're being lied to. And I think that's like a second wave of the phenomenon that people are not going to like. So that's just my conspiracy theory, but.
Let us know what you think, listeners. We know that you watched the Scandal. So
you know you did.
Tell us your hot takes. Tell us what you think. Was it edited or not?
Yeah.
I just have to say though, I mean, on the theme of betrayal, right? It's such a sticking point in so many reality TV shows, right? Because I'm thinking about the Real Housewives of New Jersey, for example, right? Melissa and Joe Gorga, who are one of the long-standing couples. Joe Gorga is Teresa Giudice's brother. I guess she has a different last name now since she married. But I mean, constantly, I feel like the storyline with Melissa and the Gorgas is Melissa stepping out on Joe, right? And I think the reason, just like what you said, Dr. Molly, is not to go all the way into the Real Housewives of New Jersey, but to talk about how it's not so much that we're interested really in what Melissa Gorga is doing in her personal life. It's about, are you betraying this idea of this sort of picturesque American family, right? Where you have a son and a daughter and this like, you know, institution of a marriage, and you have this big aspirational house that the viewers all wish that they lived in and all of this. And it's not just, are you cheating on your husband? It's, are you betraying the American dream, right? So I just had to say that when you were talking about that betrayal of the audience as well.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'd be curious to hear about Real Housewives and if this changes franchise to franchise, but also in Vanderpump Rules, it's the only reality show I've ever watched where they refer to the show or they break the fourth wall.
Oh,
so Vanderpump Rules will always say, or not always, but when they're being, you know, like doing their in the moments or whatever, they'll be like, yeah, well, you know, so Ariana came over and we were shooting a scene. Or they'll say something like, you know, these things are really hard because Saturday, like, or I was really busy, like filming this show and then also getting I was like, oh, you acknowledge that I exist and you acknowledge that I'm here. And so I think that's almost why, you know, the audience interpolates themselves, or we feel hailed by Sandoval or hailed by these people, like, oh, like almost like we hear our names being mentioned. And I'm like, I'm part of this too. And, you know, on Reddit, there's people who do Vanderpump Rule tours. They fly to LA, they go to all the restaurants, they get pictures, they compare notes on what, you know, what people acted like. And it's, I don't know, it's juicy.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I may or may not have just read a BuzzFeed article about whatever that restaurant, what's that restaurant called?
Pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, closed down. I just saw it today.
It was like a menu review of the restaurant. They were like,
I just saw today that they closed down, but something I was going to mention to you, but now I totally forgot. But yeah, I mean, that's what I've been watching. I don't know, Dr. Rule. There's just, I always, and I think we talked about this like on our first episode, that I watch reality TV so I can like relax from the day's like totally violent residues. And I find that I'm just tuning into them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. Unless you're watching Married at First Sight, in which case
you're confronting your own mortality.
You're subjecting yourself to violence.
Am I going to live till 2040 when this season is still on? Season 16 Nashville.
So just a little update for people who listen to us regularly. I think we might be able to bring ourselves to record a final episode of Reality 101 covering Married at First Sight. But this season is the season that won't die. I've never seen such a thing happen on reality TV where it was so unsatisfactory and yet so long. They have given us hours of content and multiple episodes over multiple weeks that nobody wanted. I just finished the reunion and I'll save it for if we do that final wrap-up episode, but it's still going on. They still have not got to Denver. That's the long story short, is it's not over yet.
You need to tune into our Instagram as well, because I follow an account, or we follow an account called Married at First Sight Fan, MAFS Fan. And every Wednesday, this person posts, Married at First Sight is on tonight. And I post under Reality 101, why? Why? Why is it on? Because we have the reunion. We have the Where Are They Now? We have the After Decision Day, part 1 and part 2. It is...
The reunion was 2 parts. I mean...
there's nothing going on. It's not even just that it was a bad season. It's that they're grilling my brain space with more nothingness and dog footage.
It was a bad season and a bad production. We should stop talking about it because I'm about to rant. But yeah, the dogs come up in
part
2 of the reunion because there's nothing else to talk about. Nothing else.
Once again, reality, this is our official statement. Reality 101 is not a podcast for dogs.
I'm just gonna say it. They play a montage of Clint and Gina's dog, who I don't remember what his name is. Hank. Yes, there's like a montage of Clint and Hank that again nobody wanted. Nobody wanted it.
Nobody asked for, nobody wanted. I'm sure there's more footage of Chris and Nicole calling each other mommy and daddy to their dogs.
All I can say is, I don't know what was happening this season, but I hope they have shaken things up for Denver. And let us know if you want us to cover Denver, because if not, I don't know that we will.
I want to repeat, if we do not get one person giving feedback on that, we will not do it. Unless
we specifically hear that somebody wants. I don't think we can do it.
And here I am, but I do want to cover not Denver, but the next season, because I heard it's going to be all queer couples.
Great. Oh, haven't you been watching
oh yeah,
Ultimatum?
Yeah, Ultimatum Queer Love, and Dr. Rule, you're really missing out on a cultural moment. It was the best reality TV I have seen in years.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it.
You're going to breeze through it. I want to hear all of your takes.
Let us know if you want us to cover it.
I would love to cover it. Actually, I've been begging Dr. Rule to cover it. These are some of our marital issues coming out on the podcast, but
Well, Dr. Molly, it's been awesome catching up. I'm so happy to hear that you've been tuning into some great content and had some awesome recommendations for our listeners.
yeah, you too. And we're going to have a watch along list on our social media that we're going to post about what we're watching and what you can get ready to watch, so that you can be prepared to watch along with us in late summer and in the fall. We're also going to have some really more, I guess, like academic, but accessibly academic content coming out where we're tackling certain concepts. And we're going to be releasing those in the fall for the fall semester. It's gonna be a heavy semester. I'm just kidding. We're doing nothing. We're watching TV. But again, we're always talking about some of these terms like intersectionality or patriarchy, and we throw them around because we've been reading these words for 12 odd years, but not everyone has. And so also, if you join one of our tiers on Patreon at patreon.com/RLTY101 podcast, you can access some of these reading lists that will accompany our podcast episodes on certain terms. So highly suggest catching us there and also on social media.
Again, our handle is at RLTY101. Let us know, did you watch the Scandal? Let us know what you think. Was it edited? Do you want us to really cover Married at First Sight Denver? These are the questions we have. Let us know if you are in this virtual reality world where people are getting catfished, but plot twist, not catfished after all. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Again, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Check us out.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that it really takes 0 seconds to share an episode of Reality 101. So if you are listening right now, share it with someone that you think might find it interesting, or like and subscribe to the podcast. Share it on your social media. We would really appreciate your support for Black and Indigenous feminist public scholarship. So with that, Dr. Rule, do you want to sign us out?
All right, class dismissed.